kicking, never quitting. Focus sharp like a blade that's hitting. From white belt dreams to the master flow, Paul Coffey's got the mic, now the stories grow. Technique entails discipline and fire. Each guest brings truth to inspire. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise, it's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Old school, new school, all styles blend. From the mat to the mic, where the arts ascend. Philosophy deep, but the vibe stays tight. Martial minds meeting in the podcast light. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise, it's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Keep kicking. Keep kicking. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins. Technique entails discipline and fire. Each guest brings truth to inspire. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise, it's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Keep kicking. Keep kicking. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Keep Kicking, the martial arts podcast where I have martial conversations with my martial arts friends. Today, I sit down with Tom. Tom, would you like to introduce yourself to the people?
Okay, I'm Tom Moore. I've been in the martial arts for 35 plus years. I started out Dojo Karate under Sensei James Coker, Chia now. Then I trained in a few things, Chinese Kempo, Yang style Tai Chi. I went through a little exploration period before I found my Jeet Kune Do instructor, Sifu Eric Winfrey. He passed away last year, but he was my friend for 27 years. Yeah, he's actually the one that encouraged me to seek out others. His way of teaching, a lot of arts will tell you it's okay to go train somewhere else. He demanded it. He would tell you need to go bring something back. And so I trained, like I said, when I was approaching instructor level in Jeet Kune Do, he told me, Junfan Jeet Kune Do, he told me that I had to find something. So I started looking. At first I started training in BTS, Blower Tactical Systems, but then I started looking, I was like, what about my own heritage? Because the way Sifu Eric taught JKD was like, or at least when I started with him, it wasn't set up like we have a Kali class, we have a grappling class, we have a JKD, kickboxing class. It was all just JKD, and they'd say, grab your sticks and knives. This is what we're doing today. It was like more of a comprehensive and I was approaching 10 years of training with him when I started to get towards instructor, and he was like, you need to bring something else, find something else. So I was like, well, what about my own heritage? Because like I said, I trained in Okinawan Goju-Ryu with Kobudo as part of the curriculum. I trained in Filipino martial arts in the JKD curriculum. I was like, what about my own heritage? I'm Irish, of Irish descent. Grandmother's, was Duffy. My father, grandfather was Moore. And so I was like, what about that? So one night I'm searching on the internet back in 2009, 2008-ish. And I'm like looking up Irish martial arts, and I come across Glenn Doyle, who's had just come out in 1998 teaching publicly his family style of Irish martial art. So I reached out to him. I said, "Hey, I'd love," because I found out at the time he was living in Milton, Canada, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of ironic because now I've moved to Milton, Florida from New York. But yeah, so
Okay.
he said, "Come on up and train." So I came up and went up to train with him and loved it. He put you through your paces, but as my Sifu Eric says, truth is truth. So everything
Mm-hmm.
has a common thread. Everything has, if it's real, if it's true,
Mm-hmm.
certain physical and physics principles will apply, and you can tell that it's real. Well, it was obvious to me that Glenn Doyle's family art was real and
Mm-hmm.
applicable. So I
Mm-hmm.
started training with him. I'd go up on the weekends. Occasionally I'd call into work sick and go up on a Thursday. But, I was going up as much as I could for what, because it was a 4.5 hour drive. And he'd always welcome me with open arms and tell me, geez, Tom, I can't believe you drove this far, but, drive back
Mm-hmm.
safe.
Right.
So I started training with him in 2009. Like I said, around 2010 is when he allowed me to start. He gave me an instructor certificate to start teaching. So I started like I had a separate class in my JKD school. We'd have Jeet
Mm-hmm.
Kune Do, and then afterwards I'd have a Doyle Irish stick class, and that
Mm-hmm.
went on for quite a few years. I moved from a basement of a church to I actually quit the paper mill and took the leap and opened a full-time school, bought a building.
Okay.
Yeah, took a big leap.
That's a big leap.
And that ran for 4 years, 5 years, and then the pandemic hit.
Mm.
Yeah. So then wife is an author, romance author. I at the time was doing graphic design on the side. And
Mm-hmm.
when the pandemic hit, especially in New York, they were like, you can't touch anybody, you can't breathe on anybody, you can't, and we're going to shut you
Right.
down for 2 years. So it's kind of hard to run a hand-to-hand combat school when you can't touch anybody.
Right.
So
That's unfortunate.
yeah, well, like they say, God closes one door, he opens another. So
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
pivoted. We'd always wanted to move south because my wife gets depressed during the winters. So we moved to Florida. Now we just spend the summers up in New York and get the best of both worlds.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do
So
you have a school in Florida, or do you just teach
I
via
teach,
Zoom?
I teach Zoom classes, and then I have
Mm-hmm.
a weekly class that I do at a park because, I don't want the overhead anymore. So I teach
Right.
private lessons, and I have a weekly thing at the park. And like I said, with the students I do have, most of them, all of them do Irish stick. And then like
Mm-hmm.
one of the coaches under me has made me go back into my repertoire. He's making me asking me to teach him Goju karate because that was his interest. He's kind of had me learning trying to remember my katas, and then I've kind of made it my own personal project. Is now I look at the katas from Goju through a
Mm-hmm.
Jeet Kune Do lens,
Mm.
find bunkai and everything. It's kind of fun, and it kind of expands my mind, makes me look at things from a different perspective. Because when you're learning
Absolutely.
kata, when you're coming up, a lot of times there's a very distinct linear bunkai that they teach you that aren't
Yes. Yes.
necessarily the most effective. But if you
Yes.
look at the movement when you're doing other things, before you know it, you're like, man, this movement feels familiar.
Right.
And that's kind of what I've been doing lately.
Mm-hmm. Do you have is there a lot of Goju connection with the movements of Doyle?
Well, there's a common thread in all arts.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So honestly, the biggest connection I see is between Jeet Kune Do and Doyle, or Wing Chun and
Okay.
Doyle as well. And that's
How so?
because if you take Bruce Lee, when Bruce Lee started Jeet Kune Do, he learned Wing Chun, which Wing Chun has a dubious history of French sailors and stuff influencing the
Yes.
development of that art. But on
Yes.
top of that, Bruce Lee, when he got Jeet Kune Do and came over, he was a boxer and his brother was a collegiate fencer. So
Mm-hmm.
they added footwork and movement from pugilism and fencing, both Western
Okay.
martial arts. The Doyle system is a Western martial art, which
Mm-hmm.
evolved from the kind of the opposite. They took saber fencing, the one-hand stick fighting methods of
Mhm.
native to Ireland, because when the British, through the penal laws, took away the ability of the native Irish to own swords and weaponry, they
Mhm.
went to, okay, well, we're going to use this walking stick, kind of like the Gandalf thing. You wouldn't take a man's walking stick, would you? Right?
Right.
So they evolved that way. So the footwork is the same. Like, I was amazed, especially because the Doyle system is a
Mhm.
southpaw system. In that, when I say southpaw, I guess it's because it doesn't really matter which handed you are. If
Mhm.
you put your right foot forward and your right hand forward, regardless if you're left or right handed.
Mhm.
So in the Doyle system, that's the way it's done, which kind of is, if you look at early
Southpaw.
JKD, not modern JKD, they do both leads, right? But if you
Okay.
look at early JKD,
Mhm.
Bruce Lee emphasized for street fighting and everything, right lead. Your trapping is done.
Mhm.
Most of his trapping was to get back to that right lead for that solid punch or hit, whatever.
Mhm.
So Doyle system kind of employs that same methodology. And that's where I see the thread there. It's got the
Mhm.
same stance with the heel up and that, cocked and ready to go gunpowder thing. Goju, like I said, has the same structure. Where I see the similarities to Doyle in that is
Mhm.
more in the structure of movements, like the way your spine is aligned and things like that.
Okay. Okay.
But it applies to, and also in how the techniques are applied to another person. Take, for instance, in Goju, they do this movement where they press down in like Sanshinkata, right?
Mhm.
They show them pressing down, but a lot of times it's like you're in a plum, and you're pushing the chin out to go into something else, right? Not the
Mhm.
standard
Mhm.
definition, but that's a good explanation. Well, there's a lot of that movement where in the Doyle system, like I'll give an example, Generation 2 with the follow-up Trinity blocks. So the guy throws a angle 2 from Filipino at you, and you block with
Mhm.
the lead strike, and then you raise your elbow and hit him in the face immediately, but then you go to what's called a 50-50 strike where you hit the tailbone. Well, you hit that first strike because it's like that press out. You're extending the person over the tailbone, putting their weight,
Mhm.
all that weight compressing into that tailbone, and then you release
Mhm.
it,
Mm.
causing maximum
Okay.
damage. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
kind of that same principle. Like I said, all martial arts have common threads. And that's what I love about the
Absolutely.
JKD concept, is that you can learn from anybody. That's the best thing about JKD, is that I kind of say we're the thieves of the martial arts. Show us something, it's ours now.
No, I like it. I like it.
When I teach the Doyle system, I keep it to what Glenn showed me. Okay.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to preserve the art, what people don't understand about the Doyle system, yes, it's a very effective martial art, but you've got to also remember that Glenn's dad was an iron worker who shipped out a lot for jobs and stuff, wasn't home a lot. And when he finally did see his son, it was spent teaching him this art. So
Mm.
it's not just a martial art. These are memories of his dad.
Mhm.
We're
Right.
passing on memories of a kid and his father. So there's a
Mhm.
certain reverence in that when I teach the Doyle system. And I always explain that every seminar I do, every class I do. I want people to understand
Mhm.
it's a martial art and it's effective. But,
Mhm.
you know, and even Glenn described it as a Lego system, meaning you can move the pieces around to make it work, right?
I like that.
But you can't add Tinker Toys or Lincoln Logs because they don't work. So just because you've learned the Doyle system and like I've also trained in Filipino Kali, I've also
Mhm.
done Eskrimo by someone I can't mention, and other
Okay.
things like that. But I don't add those into the system
Mhm. Mhm.
because the system is the way it's been passed down through the ages, and I want to preserve that.
Sure. Well, I spoke with Bernie, and he was also talking. First of all, he talked about how Glenn is retired,
Yes.
and doesn't like teach or really talk to anybody publicly about it any longer, which I respect. I wish he talked to me because I'd love to have that conversation. But he was Bernie is kind of in a similar capacity as you. He's been a lifelong practitioner and has been doing.
Sorry, my son.
That's all.
I
It's all
thought I
good.
silenced that.
That's good.
Yeah, my ringtone is everything is awesome.
That's great. That's great. And Bernie has done multiple martial arts throughout his existence, but now just teaches Irish stick. And he was also very, he didn't word it the way you worded it. I like your wording better about the son and the father, but he did say that, he's just trying to preserve that system as a
Yeah.
whole. I also thought it was really wild that Bernie, an Irish gentleman, had to go to Canada to learn Irish stick
I know
fighting.
and a lot of that is because of the penal laws and the way the
Yeah.
socioeconomic thing. Like a lot of people in America, we get confused and we're like, why would Catholics and Protestants fight? They're both Christians. But it
Right.
wasn't about that. It was more socioeconomic because in the penal laws, Catholics were not allowed to own cows that were valued over this much. They couldn't hold government jobs. If you spoke Gaelic, they would penalize you for it, and you couldn't get jobs. So what they would do, and that of course the Protestants were coming in from England, and they were favored by the monarchy in England, so they got the good jobs and everything. So you have the have and the have-nots, and that's what the battle really was about.
That is wild.
So that's where that, and I mean that's an oversimplified. There was a lot more to it than just that, but that's an oversimplified version of it. So
right.
The reason that Irish stick fighting died out, there's several different reasons, but one is obviously the Catholic Church didn't like it because you're beating your fellow man, it's, against church principles. So that was one thing against it. Another thing against it is the Catholic Irish were trying to up their, say we're worthy, like when they came to the United States and things like that. There were the no Irish need apply and all that stuff. Well, they're trying to show their we're worthy, our culture. So they were showing their dance. They were showing their singing, their poetry. The last thing on earth they wanted to show everybody is that we fight with sticks and beat each other senseless. So add that in, then the Civil War wiped out a lot of Irish people, because I mean, you had the Irish Brigade, like Mary's Heights, where they charged up and were just mowed down from the sunken road in where was that? Fredericksburg. I mean,
Okay.
you lost a lot of Irish there, and then back at home, like I said, for instance, the British really tried to eliminate the Gaelic culture altogether, and they started with schools. You weren't allowed to have Catholic mass. They indoctrinated the schools. You weren't allowed to speak Gaelic, and like the parents would also, like the teachers would pin a pin on your child's like a tab on their clothes for every Gaelic word they spoke in class, and when they got home, that was how many whippings you got.
Wild.
Yeah. So you see why that it was kept secret, and I mean, besides just the idea of effectiveness, because it's hard to defend against an art that hasn't been announced or shown, but there was also an economic reason for it. And then, of course, the genocide in Ireland disguised as a famine, where they lost a lot of Irish people, died out, and that, it's hard to go stick fighting with each other when you're just looking for food. So there's a lot of reasons why the art kind of especially in Ireland, got suppressed and everything. And like, it's kind of a fluke that it got preserved in Canada. I mean, Glenn's ancestor took a boat to Canada, and actually there were two boats, and the one went to America, one went to Canada, and he happened to jump on the one to Canada, and he ended up in a region in Canada which still speaks Gaelic, and it's basically like a little Ireland pocket, where they still. In fact, Glenn was telling me that there was
what a strong coincidence.
Yeah. Glenn was telling me there's a corner in Ireland, in Newfoundland, that's called Yellow Belly Corner, because there was a faction fight there, and this is, and the one faction that lost were called Yellow Bellies, and they weren't called Yellow Bellies not because they were cowards or anything, but because they wore a shirt that had a yellow stripe across here, and they said the next day, the ground and everything was just covered with yellow bellies. From the faction fight. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I asked this question of Bernie, just tongue in cheek. Tell me why Doyle Irish stick fighting is the best martial art in the world.
Well, for me, that's because all martial arts are the best martial arts in the world, because you can draw from everything. But what I will say, for me, what I like and love about Doyle Irish stick is its ever forward mentality, its aggressiveness, its no nonsense. This style was designed in a faction fight. It's not a dueling art. A lot of people think that, and they go, "Oh, I want to learn Irish stick fighting because I want to spar and I want to play with this, play with sticks." The Doyle system doesn't lend itself to that. It's not a dueling art. It's not a post counter riposte. It's kind of like in the Avengers, when Captain America says, wait, we got to have a plan of attack. And Iron Man says, I have a plan, attack. That's kind of the Doyle system. It's attack. I used to describe it as a kamikaze system, but that's not really accurate, because kamikazes obviously didn't care about their own lives. Whereas the Doyle system very much does. And so now I describe it more like a dive bomber system, like the SBD Dauntless in World War II. They would come in and they dive bomb the Japanese ships to they were heavily armored, and they'd fly through the flak to drop one payload to sink the ship, and then they're off again. Because the Zeros were lightly armored and fast, and if they tried to go toe to toe with the Zero, they would lose. So they would just, go fast in, trying to dive, but they get as much acceleration as they can, heading to the flat, because it's hard to hit something that's coming in so fast.
Absolutely.
That's kind of how the Doyle system does. They move it, whether we're attacking or defending. We even defend in a moving in covered position.
Okay. It's controlling distance then, similar to boxing, or?
Yeah, it's very similar. Like I was saying the other day, my wife, for Christmas, I mentioned to her that I'd gotten a book when I was a kid at the library by Jack Dempsey. Well, for Christmas, she found me the book and got me the book, Jack Dempsey's Championship Fighting. And in it, he describes the drop step and everything. And it's very much it's that old school style of boxing, because you've got to remember the Doyle system added boxing to their saber techniques. Around that time, Mendoza was the chief boxer in England in the area, and he had a very much, if you look at Tyson's peekaboo style, that very close in, get inside and start hitting kind of thing. Well, that's what the Doyle system is in a nutshell. It's get inside, finish it. The Doyle system does all of its damage at what we would call trapping range. That's where you want to be. The problem is nobody lets you just walk into that range.
For sure.
Right? Especially if they're long-range stick fighters, like the one-handed stick fighters of the day. Or you could even use like Filipino, Largo Mano, Filipino martial arts style. They want to stay out at the end of that stick. No one's going to let you just walk into that. So that's where the techniques that you learn. Everybody thinks, oh, the stick punch is so cool. The rear stick punch is so cool. Those are draws. Glenn Doyle's father had a saying for this. I'm going to quote him. He said, if you knock someone out with a stick punch, the sun was shining on the dog's ass that day.
Good.
Because it's not the point. The point, most people will block. You want them to block. It gives you that bridge. I kind of look at the Doyle system as it's the system of bridging the gap. The whole point is getting that close range.
Do you ever take the stick away and do a saber with this art?
No.
Okay.
Actually, there's a lot of misconception people on this kind of don't understand is the Doyle system. The way Glenn learned is that modern rest of us don't have the patience to learn the way he learned. Okay, everyone
Okay.
wants a stick in their hand immediately. Fortunately,
Mhm.
most everybody that trains with us now has some form of already has some amount of martial arts. They've done boxing, karate, something. They've done some empty
Mhm.
hand art. Like
Mhm.
the sparring issue, everybody goes, "Oh, Doyles don't spar." There's a few that do, few that don't. That's irregardless. Or irregardless, that was bad word. Regardless, the style wasn't. You got two people that are trying to crash into each other.
Mhm.
Well, Glenn again, it's a dick measuring contest. Okay,
Mm.
you're not getting skill. The way the style was really taught is Glenn's father taught him boxing first. And that's where you
Okay.
got your timing, your your angling, your distance, your ring generalship, impact, and all that kind of thing. Then he introduced the stick to him. And the way he introduced the stick to him would be like for the blocks, for instance. Glenn's dad had a stick, Glenn didn't. Yeah,
Okay.
because he
Okay.
wanted him to learn that footwork was the most important thing and distance
Mhm.
and timing. So now you're dealing with a stick. So he would teach him without a stick first, and then he would
Mhm.
introduce stick, saying, "Okay, here's the block that you would use." And
Mm.
then so you're getting all this, and then the way the techniques are done. See, there's a lot of misconception with the Doyle system in that people see the YouTube videos that Glenn put out and stuff where, like, I'm even in some of those where we're doing like the 11 blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're doing them in
Mhm.
consecutive. Yeah, boy, I can speak in consecutive motion, right?
Mhm.
That's a drill. That is a
Mhm.
footwork and hand dexterity drill. Okay.
Sure.
For application, the way Glenn put it is your opponent only gets one attack. After
Mm.
that, they're done. So you
Mhm.
close the distance on those blocks. Like when we're doing the 11 in succession, I go in, I go out. I go in, I go out. I'm doing all the blocks and I'm backing out so the person can throw the next technique. If they throw a
Mm.
one and then I move in or I'm on the hand on the one and jamming them up, it's hard to get it across to throw a two, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's the idea how the Doyle system works, or the Trinity blocks. When I teach the Trinity blocks, I teach these are what Glenn showed me, an immediate follow-up. So you
Mhm.
do an angle one block, and whether you're doing Gen 1 or Gen 2, Gen
Mhm.
2 block, boom, and you hit them immediately. Now that
Mm.
hit isn't there to knock them out. It's to stop them
Mhm.
from continuing their attack and lead you into your fury, into your
Mm.
short range two hands on the stick, just blast on the person like boxing and finishing them off. This
Mhm.
system doesn't play around with a lot of people, with a lot of tie-ups and fancy twists and turns. It's get in, destroy, next person, because the cousin's waiting, the uncle's waiting, the brother's waiting.
Mm.
This is a distraction fight. You don't have time.
Mhm. Mhm.
If you put someone in a choke, like a rear naked choke, picture a rear naked choke.
Yeah.
Stick and I get in and I do a rear naked choke. The way Glenn described those are called murder holds. Not because you're murdering this guy, but because his brothers and cousins are murdering you.
Yeah.
Right? So I know I went off on a big tangent, which I
Nope. Nope.
do.
That's great. That's
That's what I
wonderful.
like about the system is that aggressiveness, tiger on the
Mhm.
chain, ready to go. Just let it go and
Mhm.
there's no nonsense, no messing around. Get in, get it over with, because
Mhm.
there's more to do.
Mhm.
I
Okay.
hope it
I
answered.
love that. And all of your aggressiveness has led to the next question. I've been asking everybody this question, and I'm doing this for my own martial arts study. But I'm interested in your answer because it goes against everything that you've just said. So the question starts with an omission. I, as a lifelong practitioner of martial arts, recognize that I'm equal parts sadistic and masochistic. And I'm going on and lumping you in with that on the me. So we are equal parts sadistic and masochistic. And I also recognize that most of my students are not going to be that. So the question is, Tom, how do you teach nonviolent individuals to be violent when it's necessary?
Okay. Well, like I said, I've trained in Blower as well, so the mindset stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But my to use Doyle as the prime example, because that's what we seem to be talking about. In Doyle, when I get someone that I start them from the beginning, and I am, how would I use the word, anal? I'm very particular about making sure everything is structurally sound.
Okay. This is a great answer. Please continue. Please
So
continue.
I went, like, for instance, the Trinity blocks. I actually have a video. There's a video somewhere that I did from one of my first shillelaghs by shore where I actually break a stick with a guy. He's doing the first of the Trinity blocks, and I'm swinging for the fences, and I break my stick over his stick. All right.
Okay.
Okay, I know that sounds reckless, but what people don't see is the progress. This student that he was already a coach, so for one thing, I would never do this with someone that had no training. So he was already at level, and he was coming to my seminar, and he wanted to know the progression of how I teach someone to withstand that kind of attack, how to withstand. So for social media, I put the clip of boom, we broke the stick. The actual clip was, 10 minutes long of me with, I start with a foam stick. I come at him and I'm going super slow. I touch, I adjust his structure. I push into his structure, see if he falls over. Adjust his stance, everything. Hey, padded stick. Doing the block again, a little bit faster, a little bit harder. And everything, adjust, check. I do that, building up intensity till I'm swinging a hard swing with a padded stick at his block. Then I introduce an unpadded stick, and I go right back to zero, where it's like tap, adjust structure, make sure you can withstand it. A little bit harder, a little bit hard. And that's what the progression was up to. Okay, I'm swinging for the wall over here, and I swing through him. And of course, his structure is good, so he suffers no ill effects, but my bata broke. That's kind of what and that's just one example, but what I'm saying is that's how you get somebody that's
Perfect example.
yeah.
Perfect example. Yeah, because what you're doing is you're just saying they're here, they're learning, get the technique the right way. And then what you're doing is you're just allowing the technique to do the rest of the work. And that's a brilliant answer. I appreciate that answer. No.
Yeah, and
No,
then I give them the Blower tactical, mindset speech too, about, if you've got you have to have something else on your list that's worth fighting for. That from, BTS, where they teach you, that mindset. That's a whole course in itself, so I'm not going to really go into that. But yeah,
sure, for sure.
The Blower is very good at mindset stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's also like the other aspect about your answer that's interesting to me is that you're only controlling that which you can control. Because like we can't really control our students,
Right.
but we can control how they consume the techniques that we're giving them and all of that.
And we
That's a
also
great
build
answer.
confidence. If I do that, if I come at it right way, even at half speed, and I do that block and I swing and and the person fails immediately, what I've done is give them incremental success. So now they have confidence in the technique. Once they have confidence in the technique, now the follow-up and the aggression going back into if you have confidence in your block, you'll move forward. I mean, if you think about it, moving in on someone that's trying to attack you with a stick is the most incongruous thing to be. I mean, everything in your being says, run away, run away.
Right.
But
yes.
You've convinced them that, hey, this is safe. You're safer here. And eventually, like I said, you move in. Your block doesn't have to be perfect. We know that in actual combat, your techniques will not be perfect. But if the confidence is there and the aggression is there and you're close enough to hit back, sure, your stick might hit you in the head a little bit, or you might get banged in the arm or whatever. But if you had confidence in that technique, you'll proceed. Whereas if you go in timid and you're going in with your on your back foot trying to block that, you're already on a structure.
No, brilliant. I love it. What do you think the average martial arts practitioner neglects in their own practice?
I want to say, I think a lot of it is practice. It's obvious everybody needs to practice, but I think they also need to realize that it's not just about class time, or even, like, I'll use the Doyle system as an example. If I always have to have a stick in my hand to throw my stick punches, no, you don't. My wife hates me for this, but I mean, I'll be at a restaurant and waiting for the food and bored, and I've got the straw and I'm doing stick punches. I'm doing my blocks in my mind is visualizing. My hands are moving. I'm doing something. I'm always going around my house. I'm like, boom, boom, hitting, just, my wife says I have martial arts Tourette's.
I understand.
Yeah, it's, but you can practice in your mind, and the mind doesn't, and the body really don't, the mind doesn't distinguish between whether you're actually doing it or you're just mentally doing it. So you can get tens of thousands of practice hours in, just, while you're doing other things that you just got to be there for. I'm doing the dishes. My mind is doing techniques. Practice time isn't as limited as people think, is what I'm trying to get out. You can.
No, I love it.
I'm waiting in a line at the bank or whatever, and you'll see me shifting and moving, and my feet are moving. Now, am I doing a full technique and moving? No, because people would look at me like, oh boy, this guy needs to go to jail. But I'm stepping and I'm, just shifting my weight, moving the thing. Sometimes I'll even, because like I said, I've trained in Yang style Tai Chi. I'm not an instructor or anything in it, but I trained in it for a year or two. And I will do that shifting of the hips and turning. And my hands are at my sides because I don't want everybody to go, what is this guy doing? But I'm just moving through the motions. I'm doing that with Doyle Irish stick. Like I said, I can't have a straw. I'm a pen. I'm there doing this and doing this and doing that. I
love it. I also selfishly ask questions like this because I want my students to hear from somebody that's not me that the answer is to practice more. So,
well, I think if you ask 100 martial artists, we'll all say the same thing. Practice more.
Different people say different things, but the practice more is definitely the most common response. But some people say stuff like footwork is pretty common. Like some martial artists neglect footwork. The other best answer that I have ever gotten is somebody said healing and recovery time. And it's like, yeah, we're not very good at that either.
Yeah, no, we're not.
Not very good at being nice.
The bottom of Doyle is ever forward. It's like, oh, I got hurt. Nah, I'll still throw 1,000 stick punches.
Right. Man, 1,000 stick punches sounds like a lot.
Well, the first time I met Glenn, that's what we did. But the first, the first test I did with Glenn, that's what we did. We did 1,000 stick punches, round robin around the room and everything. And it was a 2-day seminar. And when I went back to the hotel, my wife was like, what's wrong with your arm? Because it was swelled up like that. I had to find the ice bucket, and I slept with my arm in the ice to get it ready for the next day.
That's intense. I like that, though, a lot. Okay, if this is something else that I've been doing recently on this podcast, is if by some chance somebody has found this video that is not a martial artist, probably not likely, but just in case, what advice would you give to somebody that's watching this that has not done a day of martial arts but is thinking?
Start. What do they say? The longest road begins with a single step. The longest journey begins with a single step. None of us would be anywhere if we hadn't stepped through that door and done that my martial arts journey really began before I started martial arts. My father, I'd always wanted to learn it. My father, was from a generation where they just fought all the time for no reason. So he'd show me things like step on their foot, and bring your punch from the hip, things
Right.
like that. My grandfather was a bare knuckle boxer,
Mm,
sparring partner for a boxer in Syracuse back in the day. So he had, in fact, I have them in my school right now, the old school boxing gloves that are, like paper thin,
that's cool.
yeah. And he would actually put us out in like me and my brother, he put us out in the yard. The front yard of my grandfather's house is a square, this little square, and he would make it, that's your ring, and from when I posted that I had these boxing gloves and I was hanging them up, all my aunts and uncles were getting on saying, "Yeah, Grandpa put them on," or Dad. To them, it was Dad. Dad put them on us too. Even my aunts, like all of them at one point had those gloves on. And then, like, after that, I was learning from books. Well, I didn't start my first official martial arts journey till I turned 16 and got my first job because my parents couldn't.
Mm,
So I
mm.
got my first job. The very next day, I signed up at Coker's Karate School for Okinawa Goju because I had seen it. And I was like, wow, that's a traditional style that I've heard of in the magazines that I've been reading, so I went there.
That's great. I love that you paid for it yourself. That's awesome.
Well, you know what? My parents just didn't have it. So,
Right.
but that's been it's funny. I've always driven for my martial arts training.
Mm-hmm.
Like I never trained in the hometown I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 35-minute drive for me to go to Coker's when I started that.
Okay.
Then after I got my black belt at Coker's, because he had moved and things like that, I went on a little journey, like I said, where I trained in different martial arts trying to find something else. And then
Mm-hmm.
I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for a little while, then they moved away. And then I was driving an hour and 15 minutes to train Jeet Kune Do with Sifu Kevin Seaman at his school. And of course, that got to be too much financially and time,
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him one time in a private lesson afterwards, I was doing a lesson with him and he was teaching me Achilles locks and stuff. And I was like, Sifu, I wish there was somewhere closer that I could train in this style. I really like Jeet Kune Do, but I just can't keep doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, I have another student that's an instructor under me, Eric Winfrey. He's teaching, incidentally, he was teaching back at Coker's Karate School after hours.
There you go.
So I called up my sensei because I'm very traditionally, I
Mm-hmm.
respectful in it. So I called him up and asked him permission first. Said, Sensei Coker, is it all right if I come back and train in this with Sifu Eric? And he, of course, he's most open-minded, wonderful instructor I ever met. He's like, yeah, come back in, come on in, Tom. No worries, get in here. I don't care if you train with me or train with him. Him and Eric were really good friends because they both worked at New Process Gear, which was Chrysler.
Okay.
So that's how, and then it came full circle, and I trained with Eric until that school closed. Then we were training out of garages and backyards and stuff for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then he finally partnered with a Wing Chun instructor, and we had a school again for a while. But
No, that's great. And I like the garage. The garage practices, sometimes they're better than the dojo practices.
well, because it's usually just a couple of you, and you're,
Yeah.
yeah. And there's a certain ambiance about like knocking somebody down and pinning them against the wall when there's rakes falling around and stuff, It just,
Right.
yeah, it's just surrealism.
Ambiance.
Yeah.
Great. So if you could give every martial arts practitioner one thing, whether it be a concept, a thought, a philosophy, an idea, a teaching, what would it be?
Learn from everyone. Even those even those you don't agree with, you can learn what not to
Mm-hmm.
do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you keep an open mind to learning, if someone shows you something, don't immediately discount it because it's not your style or your, you know, whatever, you don't agree with them because you were shown a different way. Pay
Mm-hmm.
attention to it. Learn, like I said, even if you can learn why to explain why to do it your way instead of their way, You're still
Mm-hmm.
learning. Everybody has something. There is that common thread through martial arts. And,
Mm.
I know your question earlier is, why is Doyle the best? Well, my answer is there are no superior martial arts. There's superior martial artists. There's a common thread through all martial arts. And if you can find that common thread, you can spend a lifetime enjoying every art that you're exposed to. Instead of always being like, oh, they're doing it wrong, I hate them. You can learn from every stylist out there and pick up
Mm-hmm.
something that is, to quote Dan Hassan, uniquely your own.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I would tell people in the martial arts, is that the world's too big and vast to limit yourself.
Agreed. Agreed. So that's what a lot of people like best about doing the Zoom classes, is because, I couldn't study from somebody that's in Okinawa because I don't have the ability to travel there frequently enough or lived there, but I could Zoom in Okinawa for a week. Talk to us very quickly about Zoom teaching, because there's good and bad aspects to it, but go ahead.
Exactly. Okay. So I myself do Zoom classes in Doyle Irish
Mm-hmm.
Stick. I teach Zoom classes. And I have one guy that's actually getting ready to be a coach that's been doing Zoom sessions with me for almost 3 years now.
Mm.
But here's my caveat to that. I
Mm-hmm.
don't award a level or anything like that until I physically swung a stick at your head.
Good.
So, like, just to get
Fair.
level one, this particular guy lives in Mississippi. He had to
Okay.
make the hour and a half, 2 hour drive to come to me for a session for level one. And he had to do that for every level that I award him. He's had to
Mm-hmm.
come and train physically with me. Zoom is great for getting the basics, for getting an overview, for getting the mundane out of the way, learning the
Yes.
basic positions but you still have to experience pressure. You still have to,
Mm.
you need your instructor to feel where you're lacking. Like I was saying about with the block, if I hit you and I push on you, but you have turned to face the stick because you're afraid of the stick, when I push, there's nothing bracing you and you fall over. Whereas if you keep
Mm-hmm.
chest to chest and you've done that block, right, the
Mm-hmm.
energy goes through your body and down into your thigh and into your foot, as opposed to going into the tail that you don't have. So
Mm-hmm.
until you've experienced it, I can explain that all day on a Zoom session. I just explained it right now. But
Mm-hmm.
you felt that, because when you're doing a movement, you don't
Mm-hmm.
realize all the time where your body is positioned.
Sure.
But when you have outside force applied to that,
Mm-hmm.
or, how someone else reacts to your pressure, it
Mm-hmm.
teaches you. You learn things that you can't learn through this medium.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
great for like I said, getting the basics, learning the movement and working on the
Mm-hmm.
movement. But
Mm-hmm.
you still need to have physical, especially if you're going to eventually teach. You need to
Mm-hmm.
be able to explain
Absolutely.
and that. So I personally will not promote anybody to any level without physical interaction.
That's
So, like, I I do, like I said, the way I do it too is like, if someone has done Zoom, say level one, okay, level one,
mm-hmm.
basic 1 through 11 in Gen 1, few things like that, stick punches and that. If they're going to test, they come for me. Either I go to them or they come to me for the test, right? On the test day, if the test is an hour, it's 2 hours. And the first hour is me going over everything with them, basically doing the test ahead of time and correcting everything that could possibly be wrong. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is why should be this way. Feel your structure, feel how this is. Okay, your stick punch, you're lifting your elbow too much, and that's why you're hitting yourself in the elbow. So
Mm-hmm.
let's bring that down, angle it out, try it out, see it, I'm just saying things randomly, but that's kind of
Yeah,
what
yeah, 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 yeah.
everything I'm teaching you, I want you to we're going to physically go through. So So you're not coming to me after a Zoom session and failing the test,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because there's little things that you didn't get because of physical contact. So
Mhm.
that's how I personally do it, is that you can learn all the way up to level 1 via Zoom, but to get your level 1 certification, I have to see you. To get your level
Mhm.
2, you can learn all the way to level 2. To get your level 2, you got to come see me, or I got to come see you, or you come to one of our seminars, like,
Mhm.
and I set time aside at the seminar to pull you aside and do things. But
Mhm.
you need physical interaction on things,
Mhm.
because otherwise it's just dance, you know,
That's right.
choreography and dance. If you don't
Mhm.
experience that ever forward concept, experience the pressure, the the energy. I mean, I know a lot of people are skeptical about energy and chi and all that, but there is an energy direction in things, and you can feel
Absolutely.
pressure this way, pressure this way. So I guess I'm not saying chi energy, but I'm saying, like, just physics.
Mhm.
You're learning the physics
Mhm.
of movement.
Oh, there's chi to it too,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. I didn't know how much you wanted to get into that, but
Uh,
yeah.
we get into all of it.
I I trained with Sifu Francis Fong. When I had a school, I was a member of the Francis Fong Instructor Association. And Sifu Francis is an amazing martial artist. And if you ever wanted to believe in Chi, he's the man to meet, because
Mhm.
he can demonstrate things that I still can't explain.
Right. Right. I know a couple of individuals that are just like that. Tom, we are almost to an hour. I try and keep these in an hour.
Well,
It's flown by. Is there anything that you would like to say that you didn't get to say? What didn't I ask?
I'm surprised we're in an hour. I was kind of panicking when you said an hour. I was like, I don't know if I can do that for an hour, but you're really
Well,
longer
here
winded
we
than I
are.
thought. I would like to say that I do have the event coming up February 28th. Registration is open for Shillelaghs by the Shore. It's a 2-day seminar. Both myself and Bernie teaches at it. I mean, Bernie and I are brothers. I was there when Bernie came over from Ireland to train with Glenn.
Mhm.
We've been friends for a while. So the two of us teach. It's my seminar, but Bernie comes in as guest instructor, and we have a blast. We go to an Irish pub afterwards for a wonderful dinner. Um, I mean, and then of course it's the white sand beaches of Pensacola, Florida. I mean,
Mhm.
it's like walking on sugar.
Right. Right. It sounds like a real rough time.
Yeah. Well, the seminar might leave you a little sore,
Yeah. Yeah.
but we give you the beach to relax on afterward.
Right. Oh, that's great. Also, I want to first of all, I thank all my guests for the time, because I know time is a precious commodity that most of us don't have. And I appreciate you spending your time talking to me. Secondly, I thank you because now, whether you like it or not, because you've had this martial arts conversation with me, you're a part of my martial arts journey. And I thank you for that. I want to thank everybody that takes the time to listen, watch, and listen to this podcast. I hope you guys got something out of it. And always, everybody, please keep kicking.
Well, thank you for having me, sir. I really